Welcome to Paranormal Heart, a place where people can talk about their paranormal experiences. With your host, Kat Ward.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Paranormal Heart. I'm your host, Kat Ward. Folks, the show is growing every day. I'm getting new listeners and positive feedback all the time, and I want to thank you so much for that. Don't forget to keep that feedback coming. Drop me a message at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. Hey, even if it's just to say, hey, I would really like to hear from you. So don't forget, look for the show on YouTube under Paranormal Heart, as well as Conflict Radio, Podbean, Black Swamp Digital Radio, iTunes, Stitcher, as well as TuneIn. My next guest for episode 9 has an odd and unique background. He's worked with fighters in mixed martial arts, boxing commentary fields. He's now 6 years deep into investigating the paranormal. He says he's looked fear in almost every eye it has and loved every bit of it because it's placed him among some incredibly kind and brilliant people who he'd otherwise never have had the chance to know. But my favorite background of his, he was also a stand-up comedian. I think those are just amazing backgrounds. And I'm honored to have him on to talk about his paranormal experiences, so please help me welcome Ron, the Yak Man Yacovetti. Hi Ron, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to talk to you. Thank you for having me on. We've worked very hard to make this moment happen.
Oh, that we have. Just to give you listeners a little background on what's been going on, I used to live in Alberta and moved to Ontario. While we're in Alberta, I think we rescheduled, Ron, 3 times?
Yeah.
Because I had severe weather where we had hail. The first time there was a tornado touchdown about 40 minutes from me. So it's like, quick message, can't do it. We have hail. I talk to you later. And then shortly after that, we lost power for a bit. And then I think 2 days later, we thought, okay, good to go. Let's record. And we were talking, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we kept losing connection. I'm like, what's going on? And another nasty storm. And then, 3 times. And I thought, if this doesn't work, I'm going to start sacrificing chickens because I'm starting to think this interview wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, well, I was confident today would be okay because there was no fire falling from the sky and no locusts. So.
No kidding. Okay, well,
Definitely that's a good thing on a Friday.
You got that right. Okay, well, in the intro, I said a little bit about yourself, about you. So why don't you just, before we jump in, tell us a little bit about what's going on with you, and then you can tell us about your experiences.
All right, excellent. So I'm 6 to 7 years worth of experience doing paranormal investigating. I'm in New Jersey in the United States. I started during a 14-year period within which I lived on the West Coast in Southern California. I was with a group called P-A-R-A, for a while. Only not with them because I moved out of the state. And I did a lot of stuff with a friend of mine who runs a group called SIU out of Pasadena, California, a supernatural investigation unit, who actually, him and his girlfriend Pamela just visited New Jersey, or New York City and New Jersey for the first time, and I was able to set up a really cool investigation, which we can touch on at some point.
Oh, sure.
When he was here. And so now, when I got back here, I was with Central Jersey Paranormal Research Group. They disbanded. 2 of the folks that founded it moved to Pennsylvania, and then now I am working with a group called Ghost Magnets with a Twist out of Beacon, New York, and for a brief period I was doing some work with Barefoot Paranormal out of West Milford, New Jersey, in North Jersey. Every one of those groups, let me just kind of blanket statement, great people, knowledgeable people, fun people to do it with. So if you had a chance to look up any of those groups, please do, and look at some of their evidence and how they conduct themselves. And
nice.
There are some of the people who make the field look good.
Yeah, because we both know that a lot of times in the para community, there's a lot of drama. So when you find a good team with a bunch of great people, it makes it so much better.
Yeah, no, I know the drama stuff. I see it more than I want to see it. I don't like to partake in it. It's as soon as skeptic and believer becomes Republican and Democrat, I'm done. It's like,
yeah,
you can't be on a party line just because that's your agenda. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Our end goal is the same, so to me, just investigate and cut down on the drama.
Yeah, and you'll find that those things aren't exclusive to people who are in the paranormal field.
Oh,
those are
no,
people.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, those are people who would do that if you put them into, if they were stamp collectors, they would be going, that's not an original Washington stamp you got there.
Yeah.
That's, it's clearly been fudged. There's sticky stuff on the back. And, all right.
Yeah. Like I tell my kids, when you have kids that are acting that way, it's the same thing with grown-ups. They're just in grown-up bodies.
Yeah.
You're always going to have it.
To me, one of the things that kind of makes it worse or feeds this, and I said this before on various other occasions, is one of the things that has helped move the field forward at the same time also kind of set it back, and that's some of the technological involvement and advancement. Mm-hmm. Because now not only is it more versatile for you to be able to go out and try to collect evidence, communicate with spirits, show that you're getting responses or whatever beyond, a reel-to-reel cassette tape or digital recorder for EVP, but you also have a higher level of advancement with people who can either hoax or fake evidence. And I'm not suggesting I know anybody who's specifically done that, but the accusations fly more freely now because of the ability to do that is more available to people who are in the field. It's the same thing where to edit or produce visual content for TV and graphics and stuff used to be something you had to have a huge multi-million-dollar studio to do.
Yeah.
People are doing it now at home on their Apple computers, so it's a whole different setting, and it affects moving things forward with the ability to garner evidence, but it still kind of garners doubt and skepticism among people because they think everybody's faking everything. Yeah,
exactly. And even with phones, like your cell phones, there's an app for everything now.
Right. Yes, there are, and there's a lot of ghost hunting apps, some of which I think are possible to be legit, some of which they say they're for entertainment purposes. People who are skeptical and like to debunk everything will jump on that entertainment purposes line only, and what they don't realize is the same reason that people who make detergents for dishes or for clothes say virtually spotless.
Yeah.
If they say spotless, you're going to ask for your money back because there's a spot it didn't get.
Exactly.
Whether it's blood, red wine, vinegar, whatever it is. So it's a. Can I say ass? It's a. I'm saying it anyway. I'm asking and saying the word at the same time. That's bizarre. It's a cover your ass statement that people do that, and that's understandable. So and plus, even if it works, if somebody uses something to communicate and then they start having some kind of bad activity in their home, the developer doesn't want to be on the hook for it. They're just trying to help create something. Of course, make a buck if they're charging for it.
Yep.
Some of them are free.
Yep. Have you ever used any of the apps on cell phones?
On cell phone or tablet, yeah, there's a couple apps that I like to use, and in recent times I've seen a wave of skepticism coming towards some of them. And look, you always want to scrutinize and kind of understand what you're using, but at the same time, to me, the difference, the hair that splits between credible skepticism or skeptic and incredible or absurd is the word that is often used when it's said as a sentence, but when it's applied, not so much, which is when you're doing paranormal investigating, before you jump to something being supernatural or paranormal or spiritual, you want to first exhaust every possible, here's the key word, rational explanation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, people whose agenda is so dead set on debunking and disproving everything, they just explain it the way they think they can explain it, and they don't always include the aspect of being rational about it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which to me is crazy because you can't do that. Like in any other, I can't go to work one day and tell my boss, "Hey, listen, I'm late. I'm sorry. There's bad traffic. There's an accident. You can look it up online and see it," and then she could see it, right? Mm-hmm. I could do that, but I can't go in and go, "You're never going to believe this. Last night, late, I go to bed. I get woken up this morning. The Muppets are here. They want to have brunch. We're making eggs because it's not rational.
Yeah.
So I like Echovox a lot. Made by Danny Robert's Big Beard Studios. A lot of people. I'm not trying to plug it a better way. I'm just giving credit to the actual people who make it.
I've heard of a lot of people talk about that one.
Echovox is very popular. Johnny Zappis from the Haunted Collector and Brian Kino also use it. Mark Avila from the Salem Con up in Salem, Massachusetts, great investigator, uses it. A lot of people will use it and have gotten really good results. And then on the flip side too, now there's a few people that I know who are on this. They're on a mission to try to debunk it and prove that it does this and that. And my only caution to anybody who does it is, and I said this to these very same people, is you don't want to be George W. Bush on the aircraft carrier with the mission accomplished banner behind you going, the war's over, when it's not even close.
Yeah.
The word prove is a very distinct and definitive word. You can create reasonable doubt. Proving is something else.
Yep. Now, personally, I don't like to use my cell phone during investigations because I feel my cell interferes with the other equipment. So how do you feel about that?
It absolutely can. Some of the stuff is sensitive to it. I've seen EMF detectors going off, and then it turns out that it's just somebody who didn't put their phone on airplane mode or shutting it off. If you use a phone or even a tablet, for those apps, I tend to use either a Windows tablet for an app called Phasmabox that I like to use. And I also like Echovox, and I'll use it on either an Android or an Apple tablet. One of the reasons is because those devices, like my Android tablet, doesn't have a data plan, so it's not connected to cell towers and all that kind of stuff. I'm not getting signal that way, for one. For two, airplane mode is by definition meant to cut those interfering signals off.
Yep.
Some people will say, oh, even if it's on airplane mode, it's still communicating. No, it's not. If it's on Wi-Fi, then yes, and there's another version of that, but otherwise, no. And Echovox is really designed to work like real-time EVP, where it records the sound and then it kind of loops through and cycles through out of the speaker into the microphone, and it captures the room in more than one cycle through.
I'm gonna have to give that one a try.
I like it. I like using some of those. I also like using spirit boxes. I'm big on ITC. There's some people in the field who are doing tremendous work. There's a gentleman named Flip Searles out of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
He's got a group called Dead Is Not the End with another guy named Ray Savino. Really, really knowledgeable, really, really smart people. Very fun to investigate, by the way, with. If you investigate with Flip Searles and you tell me you were bored, you didn't investigate with Flip. It's impossible. Really, really good guy, really fun, and he knows his stuff. And so, and ITC, just for people who don't know, it's instrumental trans communication. It means to try to implement communication spiritually using instruments. It does not mean playing guitars and serenading somebody who recently changed gender. Let's get that out of the way. But yeah, it's a really fascinating field, and there are possibilities for false positives. But you have to use judgment, and you have to try to discern between what would and would not be. People came on strong the same way with spirit boxes. It's like, it's radio bleed through you're getting. All right, if you say, what's my name, and it says Cat Ward, and it's cycling through at 150 milliseconds in reverse on the FM spectrum, it's not likely that you're getting that in bleed through because it's not on any station long enough to get it.
No, the odds
sometimes,
the odds of that happening are, I can't even calculate it.
Yeah, it's statistical probability, and the problem is that a lot of times criticisms or efforts to debunk stuff are coming from either a partial or full profile of ignorance. You have to know how something works, and then go, all right, it does or doesn't work.
Yep.
And then show it. The other thing that I find interesting is that a lot of times in these efforts to debunk stuff, especially with like Echovox and some of the app stuff I've seen recently, is that nobody seems to be able to answer the question. When you get something, they'll say, if you ask the question enough times, eventually you're going to get what you want.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going with the guy at the casino blowing his paycheck mentality. If you stay at the slot machine long enough, you're going to get 3 lemons and hit.
Yeah.
All right. So if that's the case, then what is the technical thing that discerns between the 15 times I asked what my name was and didn't get anything and the one time that I did?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't explain that, then you at the very least have not proven anything. You've just created doubt.
Yep. We've been on an investigation before where we used the spirit box, and I was never big on the spirit box simply because I don't like the noise in the background, and to me it's just it distracts me and it hurts my ears, to be honest. And
it's a little bit hard to listen to.
Yeah, it is, and for me it's very difficult to understand what is coming through because of that noise. But
yeah,
anyways, so there's. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
No.
I was going to say that one of the things that Flip Searles, the way he phrased it, I really like to repeat it and give credit for, is that you got to kind of train your ear to kind of not be affected by the noise.
Yep.
And almost every time I've ever done an ITC session where I got anything I thought was legit, there was always more of it when I listened to the recording than there was in the moment.
Mm-hmm. That usually seems to be, at least with my experience.
Yeah.
So what are some of the intense experiences you've had during investigations, or even when you're not investigating? Have you had experiences just of your own?
I'll tell you, so I'll tell you one cool story that was before I ever did any paranormal investigating. During the time I lived in Los Angeles, a friend of mine, Lisa Hutchison, she produced some ancient civilizations, mystery kind of specials, whatever, about the Mayans. And her and her husband bought a studio in Hollywood called Radio Recorders. Orson Welles did War of the Worlds there. Big
nice.
bands have recorded there, the Beach Boys, Beatles. Like, everybody under the sun had been in this place.
Lots of history.
And so they bought it, and her husband would close up at night, and they'd come back the next day, and doors to all the studio rooms were open. He closed them. They would smell cigar smoke. Nobody was in there. They didn't allow smoking when people were in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was helping her one time just because I had a fascination with all this stuff for years, since I was a kid, before I ever did anything with paranormal stuff. And so I was helping her produce a radio show, and she had different people in there, people who did astrology, numerology, psychics, whatever. And at the very end of it, the host of the show was reading something in one of the soundproof booths that are locked down from the copy, and he said, "I'm going to do this in my Orson Welles voice." And he clears his throat, and then the microphone, which is like on a right angle, it's a stand coming up, and then there's an arm going straight across in front of him, moved 360 degrees away from him. Oh, actually 180, I'm sorry, went half circle away from him.
Wow.
It's hard to do math at the end of the day. And it moved away from him on its own. And the sound guy turned around and put his hands up like he was being stuck up at gunpoint, and he goes, "I locked it down. It's locked down. It didn't do it the whole day."
Wow.
So that was a really weird experience to see. After that, another guy who's very known on TV, his house is called Omen House. His name is David Omen.
Yes.
He and I've become friends with him. You'll see him on TV, and depending on who you talk to, people say he's a character or have opinions or whatever. Most people that I know don't have anything bad to say. He's very cordial. He's very accommodating. He's always been a really good friend with me. And so the last couple of years, I go back in November to visit where he used to live in Los Angeles, and he lets me and my girlfriend run rampant, and he goes, "Go ahead." So we have dinner with him. He'll make food or make dessert or whatever. We'll bring something over. And then he's just like, "Go." And he's got cameras all over the house, and so we have that location, which has been on pretty much every ghost show, exclusively, just the two of us, just running around. The first time I ever went there, when I lived in Los Angeles, in probably around 2012 or so, 7 of us watched a full-size movie poster with a glass front and a thick frame come off the wall by itself in slow motion, one hook at a time, and then fall forward, and then David caught it.
Just the poster or the whole frame?
The whole thing. The poster was in the frame with the glass front. So you think if there was an earthquake or any kind of a tremor, it would have slid straight down the wall because it had some heft to it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like really light. Came off the wall, slow motion, one hook at a time, and 7 of us, give or take, watched it. There's a video on YouTube where we're describing and recounting it. Cameras were running. There was a group that was investigating the house and running the tours, and the cameras were literally crisscrossed around that spot because if you've seen this house on TV, one of the hot spots is the fish tank where the little figurines like the smoking man and Beetlejuice fall down. So one camera was shooting that. The other one was shooting through the other side of the room. And this little piece of wall that separates the bar that's between the two rooms is where the poster was. There was no reason to have a camera on that. You can't shoot everything, so he didn't have that on camera. So it really sucks that we didn't get the video of it. But, I mean, there's plenty of us who stood there and watched it.
Wow.
And that's still kind of a staggering thing when I think about it. I've been, as many people in the field have, so it's not like it's an exclusive thing, but I've been pushed, I've been scratched, I've had my elbow pushed off of a table at a place in Orange County, California, called the Dr. Willella Howe Waffle House. It's either Howe Waffle or Waffle Howe. And after I said I think my elbow got pushed, I'm not sure, someone in the group sent me an EVP afterwards when the voice went, "Oh, shit." So that's
awesome.
Cool. Yeah, and I captured a photo of a full shadow figure in the doorway at the Queen Mary in Long Beach, California. That was a couple of places I cut my teeth in the field were at the Queen Mary countless times. A gentleman named Matthew Schultz from Para Explorer Project out of San Diego. He used to run the Whaley House. He runs the tours there. He's one of the people, besides Adam Nodler, who runs SIU, I mentioned earlier, who taught me a lot when I didn't know anything when I got started, and really does a fantastic job. If you can do an investigative tour that's open to the public, where you have complete novice, never did it before people who only know what they've seen on TV, and you have people who are experienced investigators, and it's digestible for everybody, that's perfect. And so those are guys who can do that.
And where are they located again?
Matthew Schultz, he runs the paranormal investigations on the Queen Mary in Long Beach, California, which is my favorite location to go to. And it's typical of any location that anybody ever investigates. You can go there 100 times. You don't always get evidence, but the few that you get, could be some really compelling stuff. It's just, if you enjoy the history side of this stuff, which I find a lot of historic locations are benefiting from the revenue and foot traffic that they're getting from paranormal groups renting the places or running tours that they would not otherwise get. And when they're looking at restoration and fixing leaky roofs and stuff like that, and preserving places, that's paramount. So ghost hunting in and of itself, just doing that is a commendable field. So he runs the Queen Mary, which is a beautiful, ornate floating piece of history. David Ullman's house is just probably on my list. If this question was going to come up at all, I'll answer it now.
It was going to be, yes.
The most consistently active place I have ever been to. Every time I've been to that house 6, 7 times, whatever it is, 8 times, every time, something not explainable has happened at that house.
It's amazing.
Nothing ever dark or bad that I know of. Not at least for me, but...
Have you heard of any others who had negative experiences there?
I'm not familiar with any specifically, but a lot of people in the field believe, energy attracts like energy. So if you go in there with that kind of attitude, if you go in there provoking or whatever, I know of some people who have gone in and tried to do that. I don't know what came of it. It's kind of like some people never smoke and get lung cancer. Some people smoke their whole lives and they die of heart failure at 97. And smoking never affected them. Or at least if it did, it waited till 97, right?
Right.
So for something like that, with negative taunting and treating the spirit world, if you're interacting or trying to do it with any kind of hostility and provoking and stuff, that to me, that's the same kind of thing. Maybe you get away with it. Maybe nothing ever happens to you. But if something does, you don't want to find out when it's too late.
Right. I've personally known some people who are ex-military here in Canada with teams, and they had PTSD, and sometimes they would be in a really bad place at the time, and they said, "I'm sorry, I'm going to have to back out for this investigation because I don't want to attract anything," which, we were all appreciative, and I've heard of other team members, other teams who had members that with the same problems, and it would kind of be interesting to see what would happen, but I'm not really willing to risk anyone.
No, it's not. What's the gain if you if you get evidence, you can get evidence without doing that anyway. And I've had, and this is I don't. The one thing I've given up on very early on in this field is trying to convince people who don't believe in anything or don't believe in certain things.
Yep.
I've had a negative attachment when I lived in Southern California, for what I was told from a spiritual shaman who helped me get rid of it, and another one who helped kind of monitor and make sure I was good.
Mm-hmm.
From a negative energy kind of a situation with somebody else I was involved with at the time. And it was a great story now. Not so much fun when it happened.
Right.
It really kind of only reared its head the last week and a half. The first 3 weeks or so, I guess, of that month, I didn't really notice too much. I guess it was a little bit more subtle. But so when you've been there, you learn to be a little bit more guarded, a little bit more safe,
Yep.
Grounded. And for sure, I mean, I'm not looking to revisit that scenario. I mean, the fact that it happened once, you know, if you try to find a silver lining, it's a life experience that I wouldn't have otherwise had, that taught me something, and that I really, if I have to put a list of things that I can't explain together, that's on it.
Now, did this happen before you started investigating?
No, this was after I had started, but there was a hostility level that kind of happened with someone I was involved with back at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, and this was told to me by the both shaman also, that it was born out of that situation, either manifesting, attracted to, or from that person, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's hard to prove that, but I don't know that otherwise would have happened. But going through that experience, like now it's something that's an interesting story to tell. But like at the time, there was anxiety involved. There was scratching involved.
Wow, how long did that last?
They said it was around for like a month, but I guess they said it was dark and it was not really powerful, but it was enough to to mess with me and stuff. The pinnacle of it was the scratches. When I woke up on my face, I had a heat dish thing that looks like a satellite dish or a fan that has a fire safety mechanism. If you bump it, it'll buzz.
Mm-hmm.
It was going off at the REM pod sitting still sometimes at that same time period. It didn't do it before that. And up until the point I threw it out, it didn't do it again. After that. But the pinnacle of it was, after all that those are the things that made me think something's wrong. So I called the group leader. He talked to the shaman. She goes, yeah, she verified, validated something was going on. This is Thursday. She said, come see me Saturday morning. We'll get rid of it. We'll take care of it. Not a problem. I was like, all right, great. The Friday in between those 2 days, I picked up my son from his mom's. His mom and I are no longer together. She's still one of my best friends. Her and her husband now. She's remarried.
Mm-hmm.
Still two of my best friends. And they have a 3-year-old that I babysit now who I love to death. Just to kind of paint the picture that divorce doesn't always have to be ugly.
True.
Moving on. And so he was like 6 or something or whatever, I forget at the time, and I pick him up, and I named 5 items we're going to stop at the supermarket to pick up really quick on the way home. And when we got into the supermarket, 2 of the items that I named literally slid or popped off the shelves and landed at my feet.
Well, no.
And that's not usually my supermarket experience.
No, I don't imagine.
Yeah.
Did you?
And I literally, one of them was a package of American cheese that popped out of the bin over the little wall and hit the floor. And the other one was a loaf of bread that slid out. I watched it slide out. I cannot impart enough that I believe that not everything is paranormal. I'm on the fence in a lot of instances. I like to know. But unless somebody knew what was going on and knew I was an investigator and decided to be on the other side of the thing sliding bread through, if that's even possible, I don't know if the shelf goes through. It slid out from the second shelf, out from the other loaves, and hit the floor in front of me.
Wow, and no other loaves?
No.
Wow. What did your son say to that?
I don't know if he noticed. He was very young at that time.
Oh, you're right, 6. Yeah.
Yeah, he might not even realize it until we got to it and it was on the floor. He might have been looking around. I don't know. I've since told him about it, and then his jaw remained open for a few moments. As it should.
Yes.
From that kind of an experience, whether you have coupons or not, stuff doesn't usually slide off the shelves.
No. Well, someone's trying to help your grocery shop, a little quicker, perhaps.
Yeah, I know. I should have went looking for a couch. Maybe I could carry it out.
That would be awesome.
Come home, it's built.
So how did you go from being a stand-up comedian to paranormal investigator?
I make a lot of bad choices. Let me say that up front. You know what? I've had, my life is crazy. I've had opportunities through stuff I've done to be a part of some very unique niche markets or fields.
Mm-hmm.
Stand-up I was always fascinated with. I was a very not in front of the camera person. I had a chance in college to do a public speaking exam, and they gave us choices. For whatever reason, the guy included stand-up comedy, and I took a stab at it. I liked it. Started doing it. Did pretty well with it. Did it for close to a decade. And the experience I wouldn't trade for anything, because anything I've ever done, you could put me in a 9-to-5 job, or you could put me on a stage in front of millions of people, and I'm good. I can address audiences of 2 people or 2 million people or anywhere in between. It's a really good skill that allows you to connect with people. I believe some of what I got from that helps me when I try to do communication sessions in this field. Mm-hmm. I've also done sportscasting for boxing and mixed martial arts, which is different promotions that are not part of, but have produced talent for the Ultimate Fighting Championship or the UFC. And that aspect of having humor, I think, works in a lot of different ways, and it's given me an identity. When I broadcast, when I do anything, it's given me a personality that's kind of uniquely mine. Mm-hmm. And I've been in situations where people go, I don't know how you get away with saying that stuff. But it's like anything else, it's a skill. You learn it. I'm not good at everything I do. I have a longer list of shit I'm not good at. Okay? But that's something that I had an affinity for, and I think when you're passionate about something, when you enjoy something, you tend to give it a little bit more, and sometimes it comes from a place of personal connection. It's something you feel like you're good at.
Right. So while you're doing stand-up comedy, or even when you were doing the MME, have you ever encountered anything? Because you probably weren't into the paranormal yet, but did you have any experiences then?
The radio studio thing with the microphone moving was during the time I was doing comedy.
Okay.
The other stuff, the fighting, the MMA and boxing commentating and hosting and stuff, that did overlap with when I started doing the paranormal investigating stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because there were fighters that I knew who would fight everybody you've ever met. They wouldn't care how much bigger or smaller, but they wouldn't go ghost hunting.
Really?
Because you can't choke out a spirit. I think this is where the problem comes in.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Can't kick and knock out something that's messing with you that you can't touch or see. And some people, it's a deep-seated fear. It's a lot of it comes from our root beliefs. Some of it's tied to religion. There's words that you hear the Holy Spirit, and then you hear the spirit box. Some words have crossover to multiple areas, and sometimes when that happens, those things hit nerves that go deeper than just what your paranormal beliefs or set of values might be.
And a lot of times I find, quite simply, the unknown really intimidates people and scares the crap out of them.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. Yeah, that's probably as much or more so than anything I just said. Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. So what kind of equipment do you actually prefer using? Is there a piece in particular?
That's a good question. For the longest time, the Spirit Box, the SB7 was my bread and butter. I just loved the real-time connection of getting something, hearing something, feeling like I'm dialoguing with somebody or something I can't see. Mm-hmm. Some people not a big fan of the SB11 that came out after that. I happen to like both. I've been in places when one works, one doesn't, or you feel like it does at least. Probably stuff that has to do with ITC, anything from Spirit Boxes to SB7s. I have a Memorex video that it's a hack that I've when we were at the Glen Tavern Inn in Pasadena, in Santa Paula, California last year with my friend Adam from SIU, we had his girlfriend and mine they speak fluent Spanish, mm-hmm. and we were getting responses through that ghost box that were responding in Spanish, like saying "sí" and stuff, and so he's never gotten Spanish on any of these boxes before, nor have I. So, I mean, is it possible it's radio bleed through? I don't think so. Not at the speed it was sweeping in reverse, but...
That was actually a question that I was going to ask you about. Do you feel when you do investigations, if you're going to get more hits speaking different languages depending where you are?
I don't necessarily feel that way because I have one language at the ready, and I'm not always good at that. But I try, and that's what really counts, right? No, I mean, I think in some instances, there have been situations when those kind of things can work as a trigger, or they can work. In that case, the girls were getting responses in Spanish that we've never seen happen before. Neither one of us, Adam or I, had not experienced that before. The place that I took Adam to, this is a nice little segue, when he came to New York and stayed here, was we set up an investigation at White Hill Mansion, which is in Fieldsboro, New Jersey. If you're within earshot or drivable distance, or you're picking a place to come on the East Coast, the people who run it are really sweet. It's a great place. It's, for me, the oldest place I've investigated currently. I know there are older places. I found a couple now from people I've talked to. But it was built in 1723. That's 53 years before this was the United States of America.
Wow.
It's old. So the paranormal dollars are helping restore it and keep it alive. That's cool. That's something to feel good about, right? Not a lot of people's hobbies do that for something significant. And the first time I had gone there, a year or so before, was with a group of 10 people. Robert and Sandra Bandoff from Barefoot Paranormal, I mentioned before. Chuck Lehman from Chuck's Paranormal Investigations or Adventures. Chuck's a guy who, he had an odd schedule when he started, so he does a lot of stuff on his own, which I know people say don't investigate by yourself. But for him, it was either do this or I don't do it at all kind of thing. And he's a really knowledgeable guy. He's a really nice guy. He knows his stuff. And so he had a couple people together, and there was 10 of us. Chuck set this thing up, and we were running K2s and REM pods and all those kind of things down at the bar area in the basement. If you watch Paranormal Lockdown with Nick Roth, he did a show there. I think that might be one of the shows that's been there so far. And we were getting nothing. There were none of it. Those meters were all flatlined. So if there was anything that was sending impulses or phones or whatever, something would have triggered something at some point. Not one blip on those things the whole night. Robert Bandoff decides, because of the Hessian soldiers having a present there, for those who are not as historically, I guess, knowledgeable about this kind of stuff, and it includes me because this is how I learned it. Hessians were the German mercenary soldiers that the British used during their battles and conquests with George Washington and the troops here when they were battling what would eventually be the Americans, right? And they come from a part of Germany that was, I guess it was the Hessian Castle, and so that's where the name, or Hesse Castle, so that's where the name Hessian comes from. So anyway, Robert puts on German folk music. And then the lights started coming on. And then we started asking questions, saying, do you like it, whatever, and then we were getting responses where the lights were coming on. I was calling out patterns between 3 different K2 meters to light them up in a certain order, and they were doing it in sequence.
That's amazing.
I could send you the post. Chuck Lehman put something on Facebook after that saying, as long as he's been doing this, that is the only time and the most impressive time he's ever seen K2s being employed in an investigation. I know people use them a lot for the yes/no things and stuff like that, and it's a great way to do stuff if you do that. But I've never seen it replicated at this level either before. It was bizarre.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. I think if anybody has footage of it, it would be Robert Bandoff, because he's got cameras set up and stuff running like nonstop at a location. He's very, very thorough at what he does.
So what's your next project? Any interesting investigations coming up?
So the group I'm with now, Ghost Magnets with a Twist, they started doing some classes up in Fishkill, New York, near where they're from. So there was just one on EVP and how to do them that was done by a lady named Mary Johnson. It was very well done. They have me teaching one on ITC and just some of the technical stuff, some of the gear and how it works. This is not to pontificate and any of us who are doing these classes to put us on a platform and going, we're the experts, look at us. Nobody's an expert in a field where it hasn't actually been proven,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
But what we hope to do is take what experience we have and pass it on. And if through passing it on, we learn something that we were wrong about or something that we didn't know before, that's awesome. I think the second a classroom type of an environment in any way becomes one-sided, it's already kind of failing.
Yeah.
You learn from each other. So that's happening the 17th of September. I know they have an investigation set up at a place called the Curtis House Inn in Connecticut. That the special guest they have is Dustin Powery from Ghost Hunters is going to be there. That's a really, really great location. It's an old inn up in Connecticut. I forget what city it's in. We did it a few weeks back with Tony Spera and Judy Spera, and Tony's the son-in-law of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who people know from the Conjuring movies. And so they were there, and this is an interesting thing if for people who like or believe in Echovox. John Zappis, who is the nephew to Ed and Lorraine Warren, says he gets Ed Warren coming through using Echovox quite a bit.
Wow.
I've been with him on a few occasions when I've heard Ed come through. I've heard the name Warren come through. Some people that know are skeptical believe that that's because it's taking those words and then regurgitating them later.
Yeah.
So that's being hypothesized, not theorized, because it's not been proven yet. But again, it's interesting because it goes back to what I said before, was when you have hits and misses, nobody can explain the misses compared to the hits. They can always debunk the hits.
Yeah.
Which is convenient. It's so you don't want to go that route. So we were there in the basement, the bar area, and Robert Bandoff was there with Sandra Bandoff from Barefoot, and he was rolling video. I also have audio of it. And so Ed Warren was known to have been a very tough guy, very straightforward, and supposedly he would nickname her, his pet name for a lot of people was Asshole. And so we were trying to communicate, and his daughter was there with her husband Tony. Judy Spare was there, and we were trying to do sessions and stuff, and we kept hearing the name Ed come through. So I was like, all right, now I don't want to lead the witness, but if this is Ed Warren, what's the word that Johnny tells you not to call people? And it clearly says asshole.
No way.
So is there doubt behind the legitimacy of that? I don't know. Maybe. Again, there's those who don't believe in the apps. They think that the apps are regurgitating stuff. They haven't been able to prove it to me or to anybody using it that I know of yet. The timing, for me, at least, knowing that I don't know everything, right, and knowing that this is a learning curve as much as it is an application of experience,
Yep.
To me, I always try to at least grade what I'm getting on environmental control. Can I rule out that it was a person in the room? And even with EVP, like if I tag every whisper or everything I hear, and then I get something that I didn't hear and nobody tagged it, that levels it up in credibility because I was tagging everything else.
Right.
So environmental control, timing, and relevance. If you hear what sounds like chocolate, maybe it's pareidolia. This is the other thing that the skeptical side will go with, and it's a legitimate concern. I'm not trying to discredit pareidolia or the fact that it happens. But the problem is that pareidolia, for a lot of people whose agenda is driven by just debunking stuff, becomes their ace in the hole. It's what they throw down to not have to fully explain their position, but just say this is what it is.
Agreed. Yep.
And does that happen? Absolutely does. But you can't just throw it down and say, well, this is what it is. Because there's a lot of times I want to hear what I want to hear and I don't hear it. So that's an interesting thing to me, because you have the timing and the relevance. That was the exact word that he would say. And then it came through when we asked. I've done multiple choice before. There's a place called Beekman Arms in New York State. There were three of us in the one library room, and I was like, how did you, because you don't know if you're talking to a spirit, you don't know from what time period they're from. So I was like, how did you travel? By car, by horse, by boat? And it said, a female voice said, not by horse.
That's an interesting question. I've never thought of that.
I tried to do stuff sometimes. Look, everybody asks stupid questions. We all, sometimes when it's our turn during a session, we have a brain fart, and we come out with a question that we want to slap ourselves with a premise over. I get it. We all do it.
Yep.
But when I'm cognizant of what I'm saying, I like to try to come out with something that would be difficult to have. Like, pareidolia is people are saying that your brain is, you're finishing the interaction. You want to hear, what's my name? And it says cat. Because that's what you wanted to hear. But when you do a multiple choice thing, it's a little bit more of a stretch to say that it picked one of those things and pareidolia gravitated towards the one.
Right. I'm going to have to try that.
And then yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I try to just scrutinize at least, and not just jump to everything's paranormal, but, that's a multiple choice question. And it didn't say horse. It wasn't like Yacovetti said horse. It added the words not by.
Right.
So, to me, that levels it up a little bit, too.
So, were you able to narrow it down with other questions?
I don't know if we went further on the questioning or not. To be honest, that was one of those instances when I thought I heard it in the moment, and I was kind of taken by the fact that I thought it gave a word back, but then later on, when I reviewed it, is when I heard the full thing on the recording.
I had an instance once where it was a private investigation, and we had 98 people, just anybody wanted to show up, and it was a huge investigation. And everybody, some people never investigated before, others had, So everybody in the room, because you had to break it down in 4 teams, because 98 people are just too much. So everyone, they never even expected that many to show up. So everyone had a chance to ask a question. So everyone's doing the usual questions. Do you know you're dead?
Right.
What's your name? Well, this one gentleman, he had kind of a brain fart, and what came out was, do you like pie? No one could look at the man, because if anybody made eye contact, we'd start laughing. So that's always a question that I actually sometimes ask in my investigations is, do you like pie? But I've never received any response to that so far.
You know what's odd about that is that, and it's funny because when I've done sessions with Flip Searles from It Is Not the End, one of the things that he said that I always thought was true was, when you do these kind of things, you want to have some kind of energy and give some kind of energy back, because you're always telling spirits to come through, use energy, blah, 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 whatever. So you don't want to have this flat kind of like, oh, what's your name, and have no kind of energy, because then you're asking for something you're not even giving yourself. And if you think that there was any possibility that you're talking to someone who was once alive, or someone who's able to communicate from another dimension or whatever, the last thing you want to do is come across like somebody that even the living don't want to talk to.
Right.
For one, and for two, sometimes questions like that, like, and this is where Flip comes in. He'll say, you want to talk to somebody like it's somebody. Do you like pie? It's kind of silly, but at the same time, it might be a little bit more probable to get an answer, a little bit more personal on a conversational level than do you know you're dead, or because what if it is interdimensional and not somebody who maybe is passed on to another world and they don't know they're dead, it's just another dimension, and dead doesn't have a definition there, or time space not the same there. One of the things I've always found is kind of funny is that a lot of times you'll hear people ask for numeric stuff like, what year is it? What year did you die? What year this? I'm not saying it doesn't happen. By all means, if you post this anywhere and someone puts comments up and they can give an example, I've never once ever in almost 7 years of doing this heard somebody say 1912. I've never heard a number come through on any of those questions ever. Does it mean stop asking them? No, because if you get an answer to that would be freaking great. But I've never heard it come through. Matthew Schultz from the Queen Mary, he'll do stuff and he'll say, would you prefer beer or wine? Would you prefer a cigar or a cigarette? And he's gotten responses on those, doing EVP sessions, doing ITC sessions.
I sometimes ask, too, what's your favorite color?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it seems like a very basic, mundane kind of a thing to ask, but if you're communicating with somebody, whether you may or may not be familiar with them, if they were alive or whatever, but again, we don't know, right?
Right.
The question, if it begs some kind of interest, it sparks some kind of interest in them, and you're actually communicating, then it's a good question.
Because usually we always ask the same questions, what's your name, what's my name, how many people are here, so if you can shake up the questions a little bit sometimes, I find that makes it interesting for potentially making contact. You never know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's people use trigger objects, trigger sayings. There's different ways to trigger that. It's all experimental. We don't know. Like when Matthew does the tours of the Queen Mary, he'll say to the group, how do they get their voices? How do spirits get their voices on our recorders when we do EVP? And then nobody says anything, and somebody would go, I don't know. And he goes, yeah, well, that's the answer. We don't know how they imprint their voices on the thing. We don't know how we get it.
Yep. 3
people could ask questions, be right next to each other, and then you get an EVP on one question, and only one of the recorders has it. Could it have to do with the hertz level it's coming in at? Could it have to do with the vibrational level? Could it have to do with, sound waves? And there's a variety of reasons that could explain it, perhaps. But sometimes it's the same recorders on the same settings, and it still doesn't come out on both of them.
We've actually had where we split up the team on different locations of wherever we're investigating, and so everyone has a voice recorder, and say my part of the team would ask a question. We don't pick up anything over here, but the other people in the other part of the building actually get the response, and then they kind of look at each other and go, "What was that?" And then later on, it's like, "Oh no, that was the reply to my question," which is very interesting.
Yeah, and so something like that, you always kind of want to, you want to look at it, like that's where I was talking about, like timing and relevance. Like if I ask for an ice cream flavor and I get vanilla, right after I ask it, whether it's EVP or ITC or whatever it is, to me that's relevant, and the statistical probability becomes even more remote because it's exactly when I asked for it.
Right.
And then so I try to use that as a barometer for how legit the evidence might be. Now, if you go to the other side of the coin where you go, well, the gambler's mentality. Well, if you stay at the table long enough, you're going to get a hit. Yeah. All right.
Fair enough.
Well, then what differentiates between the time I said, well, you like beer or wine, or what's my name, or I asked that the same question before and I got nothing, and the time I got something?
Mm-hmm.
It can't all be random chance. That's the assertion when the evidence to support the idea that it's just pareidoia and it's just, the gambler's mentality to sit there long enough, when it lacks in being able to substantiate itself, then that's what you get, is you get that, well, if you stay there long enough, you're going to get what you want.
Yep.
Listen, I've gone through investigations and not gotten anything I wanted.
Yeah, I think we've all had that. It's frustrating.
How do you explain that?
Yeah. So when you do your investigations, do you also look at what the weather is like barometric pressure and everything? Some teams do.
Keep an eye on it sometimes. I believe that that's part of the equation. We may not understand how it fits in yet. That's why some of the devices read those kind of things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why when you look at evidence, that's one of the reasons why, for people who maybe don't know this stuff and listening, that's why a lot of the toys and gadgets are kind of employed at the same time. Mm-hmm. Because all branches of science, whether they believe in paranormal stuff or not, will say that energy can't be created or destroyed, right? So one of the ideas is that when something moves by itself, where you get a vocal tone or whatever, that the energy used to do that could be converted from thermal energy, and that's why you get that mysterious cold spot that you get, and then so you get a reading on that, and that's different, and then at the same time that something moves, whatever, and you're using these things to kind of correlate, and then try to establish patterns. There's a difference in the barometric pressure. Yep. At the same time, there's an EMF spike, and at the same time, you get an EVP and something moves, whatever. You're trying to triangulate or trying to correlate different pieces of evidence to support that something happened, and maybe try to create or figure out, why and how these things occur or recur.
Very true. So
I'm just a student.
Oh, so am I. I'm still learning so much. You've got a lot more experience investigating than I do.
It's funny because one of the things that's cool about this stuff is, at least for the real hardcore enthusiast, let's say, no matter how many times you do this, no matter how many times you get or don't get evidence or whatever, the first time you hear or the 100th time you hear an EVP, it's mind blowing. It's totally it's a whole whoa moment. And to be honest, that's my answer. You probably heard me say this before in the past when anybody else has asked me, is that I never say that I'm a believer or a skeptic. I always say I'm an investigator. I want to know, to the best of my ability or the people I'm with ability, the truth of what I'm getting or experiencing at that place at that moment.
Right.
Because I can't prove the place is haunted or not, because you might go and get nothing, I might go and get something, then you go again and get something, I go back, I get nothing.
Right. Yeah.
So, and when you've had stuff debunked or you've been able to explain things away rationally, let's not leave that part out, rationally, and then you finally get something that can't be rationally explained away, it gives it even more value because you've not been able to do that before.
If you had a piece of advice for someone starting out, what would you tell them?
Learn from everywhere you can. People are critical of those who learn from the TV shows.
Yep.
Do the TV shows have any educational value? Yeah, they do. There's some stuff you can learn from that. Of course, it's when something's produced for entertainment, there's a certain level of how they cut it and edit and stuff, and then people are skeptical of that, and I understand that. But I would say, two things. I would say learn and enjoy. Learn because if you're interested in something like this, that's what I love about this stuff. There's endless possibilities of books and classes, and I know how to do this thing, and I do this well, and I enjoy doing this, and then I meet someone who teaches me a different way to do it, or introduces me to a new app or a piece of equipment or whatever. So that's what keeps it fresh and new, right? And this is a relationship. You have a relationship with the field. You have a relationship with the people in the field. And so what's the thing that you get when you get relationship advice? Keep it fresh, keep it exciting, keep it new. And I think this is a way to do that and keep people positive and engaged in that way. And I also believe in fun.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yes.
I'm going to reference Flip Searles again because he's hilarious.
He is.
But you have to have some kind of enjoyment with it. We're not making money doing this. Nobody's getting rich doing this. If there's a way you can make money doing a show or people who lecture or teach like that, by all means, I'm not against it. If you have something of value and people were willing to pay for it, that's how a marketplace works. Mm-hmm. So that's fine. But as an investigator, for the most part, we're not getting paid to go out to these places and do these investigations. It's a passion thing.
Yes.
And so not just the whole energy attracts like energy and being positive thing, but also it's part of having, the experience be fun and positive. You're not guaranteed evidence, right? So when I do something with ghost magnets with a twist, first of all, they're nice people, and these are people who have like a family-oriented kind of mentality towards stuff. So you have a positive experience through that kind of interaction, for one, which I think is important. And for two, when I do stuff, and they'll have me stationed like in the basement at the Curtis house, whatever, for the night, and then groups will come through and they'll each take a turn doing sessions with me down there. That's part of the experience, right? They pay for a ticket. They're not guaranteed evidence. If you can show some evidence that you got in here before, or you got in somewhere else, if you can show them an enjoyable time, they're not going home going, this sucks, this is bullshit, I didn't get an EVP, nothing poked me, nobody got possessed, I didn't see stuff flying off the shelves, nobody turned red. I'm probably exaggerating now with turning red. But you give them a good experience, and that's if they're buying a ticket for something, I think that's part of what you want to make sure happens.
Yep. Interesting. So we're at the end already.
Huh?
I'm
chatty.
It's okay. That's what the show's about. We let people go and just talk.
I've been on both sides of the interview process.
Yeah.
And when you get a chance to talk to somebody and prod and ask questions and stuff, it's I like if this was reversed and I'm interviewing you, I would want to hear your thoughts and experiences and stuff like that. So it's just out of habit. I feel like this is an opportunity that I've been graced with, and I appreciate that you gave to me to talk to an audience of one person, 1 million people, whatever it is. It doesn't matter to me. It's an opportunity to talk and share my experience, and so that's a little bit of giving back to the community, I feel.
Well, I'm very, very happy to have you on. Like we said in the beginning, it was a tough go there in the beginning.
Yeah.
But we did it.
We were being thwarted by natural disasters and storm fronts and cell cycles and tornadoes, and
it was brutal. Was it paranormal? I don't know.
You never know. You don't know.
So before we let you go, where can people find you?
They can find me on the interwebs with a lot of other people. I like saying that. I don't know what. I have a Facebook page under my name, Ron Yacovetti. I have Twitter with a twandle I don't always use, but I sometimes use Instagram occasionally. Mostly Facebook. And then I'm hoping to be in a short time. I have a couple of show ideas that I'm kind of working on putting together. One of which is going to be what I feel kind of like spotlighting or highlighting people who are in this field. And so I'm excited about doing that. So when I have that kind of stuff, I'll share it, and then like we all do for each other, we can repost and share and put a thumbs up on it.
Yeah, you mentioned that before. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's just the people in this community are what makes it great, right? So
we rise each other up.
Yeah, it's a community. That's what it is, and so it's a field of study that has completely bloomed, where this stuff used to be taboo. You're lucky you can find a segment of like unsolved mysteries or a segment on some random show every so often, and now everything is haunted. In my haunted blender, I lived with a ghost. Celebrities with ghosts. The housewives of ghost town. There's endless shows.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Queer Eye for the Ghost Guy. I probably created a show right there. You're welcome, Bravo Network. You're welcome.
That's awesome.
So it's a blooming field, and so a lot of us have an opportunity to do stuff like this, and I think that's great.
For sure. Well, thanks again, Ron. I had a blast.
Thank you.
And you take care.
You too. Thanks very much. And I encourage your listeners to keep supporting and following your show.
Thank you.
Because this has been a really fun experience, and I think that, every time somebody takes the time to do something like this, I think that the people should support it.
Thank you. I hope so. I hope there's more than just my family listening.
Hey, that's okay. And I'm sure there are.
There are. Okay. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And if you'd like to be on the show or have questions or comments, just drop me an email, paranormalheart13@gmail.com.
Paranormal Heart would like to extend a special thank you to PurplePlanet.com for supplying the music for the show. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart are those of the host and participants.